Captain Jake Morrison stared through the viewport of his ship as the massive Kepler station came into view. The station looked like nothing he had ever seen before. It was huge, bigger than any city on Earth, metal towers stretched out in all directions, connected by bridges that glowed with strange blue lights. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at various ports, each one shaped differently than the last. "First time seeing it never gets old," said Lisa Chang, his pilot. She was sitting in the chair next to him, her hands dancing over the control panel as she guided their ship closer to the station. "It's incredible," Jake replied, watching as a massive ship with 6 wings flew past them. The ship was purple and covered in what looked like scales. "I still can't believe we're actually here." Danny Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station. 2 years ago, we didn't even know there was life on other planets. Now we're meeting with 12 different species. He shook his head in amazement. My grandmother would never believe this. Amy Foster, their communications officer, was busy listening to the radio chatter from the station. "Captain, I'm getting the docking instructions now. They're sending U.S. to Port 7. Jake nodded and was about to respond when Amy's face changed. She looked confused, then concerned. "Captain, there's something strange in the docking protocol. What is it?" Jake asked, moving over to look at her screen. Amy pointed to a line of text that was highlighted in red. "It says here that all human personnel must remove protective headgear before boarding. Any violation of this directive will result in immediate expulsion from Federation space. Headgear?" Lisa asked, touching her helmet. "You mean our helmets?" "That's what it says," Amy replied. "I've never seen anything like this before." "Why would they care about our helmets?" Jake frowned. This was their first official diplomatic mission to Kepler Station. Earth had been invited to join the Galactic Federation just 6 months ago, and this meeting was supposed to be the first step toward full membership. He didn't want to cause any problems, but the helmet restriction seemed odd. "Maybe it's a safety thing," Danny suggested. "Different species might have different safety rules." "Or maybe it's cultural," Amy added. "Some species might find covered faces rude or threatening." Jake thought about it for a moment. Human space helmets were standard equipment on all ships. They protected against sudden pressure loss, provided air in emergencies, and contained communication systems. More importantly, they had built-in computer systems that helped with navigation and analysis. Taking them off felt like going into space naked. "Well, we don't want to start our relationship with the Federation by breaking rules," Jake decided. "When we dock, we'll leave our helmets on the ship." Lisa guided the ship into the docking bay. The process was smooth, and soon they heard the familiar sound of the docking clamps engaging. Through the viewport, Jake could see the station's interior. It was even more impressive up close. The walls were covered in patterns that seemed to move and shift, and beings of all shapes and sizes walked through the corridors. "Artificial gravity is stable," Danny reported. "Atmosphere is breathable. Everything looks good." Jake stood up and removed his helmet, placing it carefully on his chair. It felt strange to be without it. The helmet had been like a second skin to him for years. Lisa, Danny, and Amy did the same, all of them looking a bit uncomfortable. "Ready?" Jake asked. They nodded, and together they walked to the airlock. The door opened with a soft hiss, and they stepped onto Kepler Station. The first thing that hit Jake was the smell. It wasn't bad, just different. There was a metallic tang in the air, mixed with something that reminded him of flowers. The second thing he noticed was the noise. The station was alive with sounds he had never heard before. Clicks, whistles, and what sounded like singing. "Captain Morrison." Jake turned to see a tall, thin being approaching them. It looked like a cross between a human and an insect, with compound eyes that reflected the station's lights. It wore what appeared to be a uniform, though it was unlike anything Jake had seen on Earth. "I am Ambassador Veltar," the being said, its voice coming from somewhere in its chest. "I serve as the diplomatic coordinator for this station. Welcome to Kepler Station." "Thank you, Ambassador," Jake replied, extending his hand. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. This is my crew, Lisa Chang, Danny Rodriguez, and Amy Foster." "Veltar," looked at Jake's extended hand for a moment, then carefully reached out with what appeared to be a modified arm. The handshake was awkward but friendly. "Please follow me," Veltar said. "I will show you to your quarters and then we can begin the orientation process." As they walked through the station, Jake marveled at the diversity of life around them. There were beings that looked like walking trees, others that seemed to be made of liquid metal, and some that appeared to be floating clouds of gas held together by mechanical frames. None of them seemed to pay much attention to the humans, though Jake noticed a few curious glances. "Ambassador," Jake said as they walked, "I noticed something unusual in our docking instructions. There was a requirement for humans to remove their helmets before boarding the station. Could you explain why that is?" Veltar's compound eyes flickered, and his pace slowed slightly. "Ah, yes. The helmet restriction. It is a standard precaution." "Precaution against what?" Lisa asked. "Nothing dangerous," Veltar said quickly. "Simply a matter of protocol. Many species have different sensitivities." Jake noticed that Veltar had changed the subject, but he didn't want to push too hard on their first day. "I understand. We're happy to follow any protocols that make other species comfortable." They continued walking until they reached a section of the station that had been modified for human use. The corridors were narrower here, and the gravity felt more like Earth. Normal. Veltar showed them to their quarters, 4 small but comfortable rooms connected by a common area. "Your formal meetings will begin tomorrow," Veltar said. "Tonight you are free to explore the station's public areas. The market district is particularly interesting for newcomers. However, please remember to follow all posted guidelines." After Veltar left, the crew gathered in the common area. Jake could tell that something was bothering all of them. "Did anyone else notice how uncomfortable the ambassador got when we asked about the helmets?" Amy asked. "Definitely," Danny agreed. "He changed the subject really fast." "And did you see how some of the other beings reacted when they saw us?" Lisa added. "A few of them actually backed away," Jake nodded. "I noticed that too. There's something they're not telling us about this helmet restriction." "Should we ask around?" Amy suggested. "Maybe some of the other species would be more willing to talk about it." "Carefully," Jake said. "We don't want to cause any diplomatic incidents. But yes, I think we should try to understand what's going." On that evening, they decided to visit the market district. It was a massive area filled with shops, restaurants, and vendors selling goods from across the galaxy. The variety was overwhelming: foods that glowed, tools that seemed to work by themselves, and art that moved and changed as they watched. Jake was examining a display of crystalline sculptures when he heard voices behind him. 2 beings were talking in what sounded like an argument. One was a short, stocky creature covered in blue fur, while the other was tall and thin with skin that looked like polished stone. "I still say it was a mistake to let them into the Federation," the blue-furred one was saying. "The Council has made its decision," the stone-skinned one replied. "But the restrictions are necessary. We cannot have a repeat of the helmet incident." "Never again," the first one agreed. "The Vexians still haven't recovered from the humiliation." Jake's ears perked up. He moved closer, pretending to be interested in a nearby vendor's wares. "Human unpredictability when their heads are covered," the stone-skinned being continued. "Who could have predicted such a thing?" "The analysis was terrifying," the blue-furred one said. 15 minutes and an entire fleet was compromised. If they had been wearing their helmets during the initial contact. The conversation was interrupted when the 2 beings noticed Jake listening. They stopped talking immediately and hurried away, leaving Jake with more questions than answers. When he returned to his crew, Jake shared what he had overheard. They sat in their common area, trying to piece together the puzzle. "Something happened with helmets," Jake said. "Something involving the Vexians and the fleet being compromised." "The Vexians are one of the most powerful military species in the galaxy," Amy said. "I read about them in the briefing materials. What could humans have done to them?" "And what did they mean by human unpredictability when their heads are covered?" Danny asked. Lisa looked thoughtful. "Our helmets aren't just protective gear?" They have computer systems, sensors, communication equipment. Maybe there's something about our technology that other species find concerning. But why would that be a problem? Jake asked. We're not the most advanced species in the galaxy. Maybe we're advanced in ways they don't expect, Amy suggested. As they discussed the possibilities, Jake realized that their simple diplomatic mission had become much more complicated. There was a story behind the helmet restriction, and he was determined to find out what it was. Tomorrow he would start asking more pointed questions. The galaxy might have banned humans from wearing H. The next morning, Jake Morrison woke up with more questions than answers. He had spent most of the night thinking about the overheard conversation in the market. The words helmet incident and Vexian fleet compromised kept repeating in his mind. Something big had happened, and he needed to find out what. He found his crew already awake and gathered in the common area. Lisa was drinking what looked like coffee, though it was purple and steaming. Danny was studying a datapad, and Amy was working on her communication equipment. Any luck with the language databases? Jake asked Amy. Some, she replied, looking up from her screen. I've been working on decoding some of the older transmissions stored in the station's public archives. Most of it is routine stuff, but I found some references to something called the Frontier Quest. The Frontier Quest? Jake sat down next to her. What's that? It appears to be a human ship, Amy explained. The records show it was involved in some kind of incident about 3 years ago. The details are mostly classified, but I can see it was the first human ship to make contact with the Vexian Empire. Danny looked up from his datapad. That matches what we heard yesterday. The blue-furred alien mentioned the Vexians. I've been thinking about that too, Lisa said. The Vexians are supposed to be one of the most advanced military species. In the galaxy, what could one human ship do to an entire fleet? Jake rubbed his chin thoughtfully. We need more information. Amy, can you keep working on those archives? Try to find anything about the Frontier Quest or this helmet incident. Already on it, Amy replied. But I might need help. The alien databases are complicated and some of the files seem to be locked. What kind of help? Jake asked. Someone who knows the system better than I do. Maybe one of the station's technicians or engineers? Danny perked up. I met a young engineer yesterday when I was looking at the station's power systems. He seemed friendly enough. His name is Zix, and he's from the Krulin species. They're the ones who look like tall, thin humans with silver skin. Would he be willing to help us? Lisa asked. Maybe, Danny said. He seemed curious about human technology. I think he might be more open to talking than some of the others. Jake nodded. Good. Danny, you work with Zix. See if you can get him to help Amy. With the archives. Lisa, I want you to talk to some of the other pilots. Maybe they've heard stories about the Frontier Quest. What about you? Amy asked. I'm going to try a different approach, Jake said. I'm going to visit the medical bay and see if I can find out more about human physiology files. Maybe there's something in there about our helmets or equipment? They split up after breakfast. Jake made his way to the medical section of the station. The corridors here were painted in soft green colors and the air smelled clean and sterile. The medical bay was run by a species called the Healers, who looked like tall, graceful beings with 4 arms and skin that changed color based on their mood. The chief medical officer was named Dr. Yolandra. Her skin was currently a calm blue color, which Jake hoped meant she was in a good mood. Captain Morrison, she said in a voice that sounded like flowing water. How may I assist you today? I was hoping to review the medical files on human physiology, Jake said. I want to make sure our species' needs are properly understood. Dr. Yolandra's skin shifted to a slightly yellow tint, which Jake interpreted as curiosity. Of course. We have extensive files on human biology. However, I must ask, is there a specific concern? Not exactly, Jake replied carefully. I'm just trying to understand why humans have certain equipment restrictions that other species don't have. The doctor's skin turned a deeper yellow, and Jake noticed she glanced around nervously. You are referring to the helmet protocol? Yes, I'm trying to understand the medical reasoning behind it. Dr. Yolandra was quiet for a moment, her skin shifting through several colors. Finally, she said, "Captain, the helmet restriction is not medical in nature. It is a security protocol established after what we call the Frontier Quest assessment event." Assessment event? Jake leaned forward. What kind of assessment? I cannot provide details, the doctor said, her skin now turning a reddish color that Jake guessed meant discomfort. But I can tell you that it involved the way humans process visual and tactical information. Your species has a unique approach to threat analysis. Threat analysis? Your helmets contain sophisticated sensor and computing systems, Dr. Yolandra explained. When combined with human cognitive patterns, they create what other species consider an unsettling level of situational awareness. Jake felt like he was getting closer to the truth. Unsettling how? The doctor's skin was now a deep red. Captain, I have said too much already. Perhaps you should speak with Ambassador Veltar about this matter. Jake realized he wouldn't get any more information from the doctor, so he thanked her and left. As he walked back through the corridors, he thought about what she had said. Their helmets created unsettling situational awareness when combined with human thinking. What did that mean? Meanwhile, Danny was having better luck with Zix. The Krulin engineer was indeed curious about human technology, and he seemed less worried about breaking protocol than some of the other aliens. Your species is fascinating, Zix said as he and Danny walked through the station's engineering section. You integrate your technology so completely with your biology. Most species keep their tools separate from themselves. What do you mean? Danny asked. Your helmets, for example, Zix explained. They are not just protective gear. They are extensions of your minds. The way they connect to your neural patterns and enhance your cognitive abilities is remarkable. Is that why other species are concerned about them? Zix's silver skin seemed to shimmer, which Danny had learned was the Krulin equivalent of a nervous laugh. Concerned is one word for it. Terrified might be more accurate. Terrified? Why? Zix looked around to make sure no one else was listening, then leaned closer to Danny. 3 years ago, a human ship called the Frontier Quest made first contact with the Vexians. The human crew was wearing their helmets during the initial meeting. What happened? The Vexians wanted to show off their military power, Zix continued. They brought the humans aboard their most advanced warship for a tour. They thought they were impressing the humans with their superior technology. Danny waited patiently for Zix to continue. What the Vexians didn't realize was that human helmets automatically analyze everything they see. While the Vexian war commander was bragging about his ship's capabilities, the human helmets were quietly cataloging every weakness, every vulnerability, every flaw in the design. That doesn't sound terrifying, Danny said. It wasn't until the Vexians made a mistake, Zix replied. They decided to demonstrate their weapons by targeting the human ship. It was supposed to be a show of force, not an actual attack. But the human helmets interpreted it as a hostile action. Danny felt a chill run down his spine. What happened then? The humans turned the Vexians' own technology against them. Zix said quietly. Using the weaknesses their helmets had identified, they took control of the entire Vexian fleet in less than 15 minutes. The most powerful military force in the galaxy was defeated by a handful of humans who were just trying to be diplomatic. That's impossible, Danny breathed. The footage is locked away in the highest security archives, Zix said. But every species in the galaxy has heard the story. The Vexians went from being feared warriors to a laughingstock overnight. And it all happened because humans see things differently than everyone else. At the same time, Lisa was having her own conversation with a group of pilots from various species. They were more willing to talk than she had expected, especially after she bought them a round of drinks at the station's pilot lounge. The Frontier Quest, said a pilot who looked like a humanoid cat. That ship changed everything. Before then, most species thought humans were just another primitive species who had stumbled onto faster-than-light travel. What changed their minds? Lisa asked. "A tactical analysis?" replied another pilot, this one resembling a walking tree. The humans' helmets recorded everything during their visit to the Dexian flagship. When the data was reviewed later, it showed that the humans had identified over 200 critical vulnerabilities in Nexion technology within the first hour of their visit. 200? Lisa was amazed. "The scary part," added a third pilot who looked like he was made of crystalline rock, "was that the humans didn't even know they were doing it. Their helmets were just running standard analysis protocols. To them, it was routine information gathering. But to everyone else," the cat-like pilot continued, "it looked like the humans were conducting detailed military reconnaissance. The level of analysis was beyond what most species could achieve with dedicated intelligence teams working for months." Lisa was beginning to understand. So the helmet ban isn't about keeping humans from gathering intelligence. It's about preventing them from accidentally analyzing everything they see. "Exactly," the tree-like pilot said. "Humans don't just look at things. They analyze, categorize, and identify potential uses or weaknesses. It's automatic for your species. Your helmets just make that process faster and more accurate. And more threatening to other species," the crystal pilot added. The next morning brought unexpected news. Ambassador Veltar arrived at their quarters earlier than usual, and his compound eyes were flickering in a way that suggested excitement or nervousness. "Captain Morrison," Veltar said, "I have received authorization to share certain classified information with you and your crew. The Federation Council has decided that you should know the full truth about the helmet restriction." Jake looked at his crew, who were all gathered around the common area. "We appreciate that, Ambassador. We've been very curious about the reasoning behind the policy." "Indeed," Veltar replied. "Your questions yesterday did not go unnoticed. Several species representatives have reported your inquiries about the Frontier Quest incident." Amy shifted uncomfortably. "Are we in trouble?" "Not at all," Veltar assured her. "In fact, the Council believes it would be beneficial for humans to understand why these restrictions exist. It may help prevent future misunderstandings." Veltar activated a holographic display in the center of the room. The image showed a sleek human vessel that Jake recognized as an early exploration ship design. "This is the Frontier Quest," Veltar explained. 3 years ago, it was the first human vessel to make official contact with the Vexian Empire. The mission was intended to be a simple diplomatic introduction. The hologram changed to show a massive, dark-colored warship. It was at least 10 times the size of the Frontier Quest, with sharp angles and weapon arrays covering its hull. "This is the Vexian flagship Dominator Prime," Veltar continued. "At the time, it was considered the most advanced military vessel in the galaxy. The Vexians were very proud of their technological superiority." Lisa leaned forward. "What happened when the two ships met?" "The Vexians invited the human crew aboard their flagship for what they called a cultural exchange tour," Veltar said. Captain Ben Parker and his crew of 8 humans accepted the invitation. They were all wearing their standard exploration gear, including their helmets. The hologram showed the interior of the Vexian ship. It was impressive, with gleaming metal corridors, advanced control panels, and weapon systems that looked far more sophisticated than anything on Earth. "The Vexians had a specific plan," Veltar explained. "They wanted to demonstrate their military might to the new species. They believed that showing humans their superior technology would establish the proper power dynamic in future negotiations." Danny frowned. "That doesn't sound very diplomatic." "The Vexians are a warrior culture," Veltar replied. "They believed that showing strength was the best way to earn respect. They had used this approach successfully with several other species." The hologram shifted to show a group of humans walking through the Vexian ship. They were led by a tall man who Jake assumed was Captain Ben Parker. All of the humans wore their standard helmets, and they seemed calm and interested as they toured the vessel. The tour began in the ship's main engineering section, Veltar continued. War Commander Thexanol personally guided the humans through the ship's most advanced systems. He was particularly proud of their shield generators and weapon arrays. Jake watched the hologram carefully. The humans looked like ordinary explorers on a standard diplomatic mission. He couldn't see anything that would cause the kind of incident he had heard about. What the Vexians did not realize, Veltar said, was that human helmets contained sophisticated analysis systems. While Captain Parker and his crew were politely listening to the tour, their helmets were automatically scanning everything they observed. The hologram zoomed in on one of the human helmets. Jake could see the familiar blue glow of active sensors and the subtle movement of microcameras that he knew were STANDARD equipment. The helmets were performing what humans call routine environmental analysis, Veltar explained. They were checking for safety hazards, mapping the ship's layout, and identifying potential emergency exits. Standard procedures for humans entering an unfamiliar environment. Amy nodded. That's exactly what our helmets do. It's an automatic safety feature, yes, Veltar agreed. But the human definition of safety analysis includes capabilities that most species consider to be advanced military intelligence gathering. The hologram changed to show a detailed technical readout. Jake recognized it as the kind of analysis report that human helmets generated automatically. It showed structural weak points, power distribution patterns, and system vulnerabilities. Within the first 30 minutes of the tour, Veltar continued, the human helmets had identified 47 critical vulnerabilities in the Vexian ship's design. By the end of the first hour, they had mapped the entire vessel's structural and system weaknesses. Lisa whistled softly. That's incredible. I had no idea our helmets were that sophisticated. The analysis was not limited to structural weaknesses, Veltar said. The helmets also identified tactical vulnerabilities, communication system flaws, and what humans call exploit pathways in the ship's computer networks. Danny looked confused. Exploit pathways? Ways to turn the ship's own systems against itself, Jake explained grimly. Our helmets identify those automatically as part of their security protocols. Exactly, Veltar confirmed. What humans consider basic safety analysis, other species consider to be detailed preparation for sabotage or attack. The hologram showed the tour continuing through different sections of the ship. The humans still looked calm and interested, but Jake now understood that their helmets were quietly cataloging everything they saw. The situation escalated when the Vexians brought the humans to their command center, Veltar said. War Commander Vexonal wanted to show off their most advanced tactical systems. He believed that demonstrating their command capabilities would impress the humans. The hologram showed a massive command center filled with control stations, tactical displays, and what appeared to be hundreds of Vexian officers. It was clearly the nerve center of the powerful warship. The Vexians activated their full tactical display, Veltar continued. They showed the humans their fleet formations, weapon, targeting systems, and defensive capabilities. War Commander Vexonal was particularly proud of their impenetrable network security. Jake felt a chill as he began to understand where this was heading. The human helmets immediately began analyzing the tactical systems, Veltar explained. Within minutes, they had identified critical flaws in the Vexian command structure. The network that the Vexians believed was impenetrable was actually vulnerable to a simple feedback loop exploit. The hologram showed technical diagrams that Jake recognized as network vulnerability maps, the kind of analysis that would take human military intelligence teams days to complete had been done automatically by the helmets in minutes. But the most significant development occurred when War Commander Vexonal decided to demonstrate their weapons, Veltar said. He ordered his crew to target the Frontier Quest with their main guns. It was intended to be a display of power, not an actual attack, Amy gasped. They pointed their weapons at the human ship. Yes, Veltar confirmed. The Vexians believed this would show the humans how outmatched they were. They had no intention of firing, but they wanted to make their point about Vexian military superiority. The hologram showed the moment when the Vexian weapons locked onto the Frontier Quest. Jake could see the targeting displays and the massive energy readings from the ship's weapon systems. The human helmets interpreted the weapons lock as an imminent threat, Valtar explained. They immediately activated what humans called defensive protocols. What kind of defensive protocols? Lisa asked, though Jake suspected she already knew the answer. The helmets transmitted all of their tactical analysis to the Frontier Quest, and simultaneously to Earth's defense networks, Valtar said. Within seconds, Human Command had complete technical specifications for Vexion technology, including all identified vulnerabilities. The hologram showed data streams flowing from the human helmets to their ship and beyond. The amount of information being transmitted was staggering. The helmets also activated local defensive measures, Valtar continued. Using the network vulnerabilities they had identified, they began implementing countermeasures to neutralize the perceived threat. Jake watched in fascination as the hologram showed the Vexian ship systems beginning to malfunction. Control panels flickered, displays went dark, and alarm sounds began blaring throughout the vessel. Captain Parker calmly informed War Commander Thexanol that his ship was now under human control, Valtar said. The War Commander initially laughed, believing this was impossible. The hologram showed the Vexian commander's face changing from amusement to confusion to horror as his officers reported system failures throughout the ship. The human helmets had turned the Vexian ship's own systems against itself, Valtar explained. The weapons that had been targeting the Frontier Quest were now offline. The shields that protected the ship were down. The communication systems that coordinated the fleet were under human control. Danny shook his head in amazement. All of this happened automatically? The helmets were simply following their programmed defensive protocols, Valtar confirmed. They identified a threat and responded with appropriate countermeasures. The humans were not trying to attack the Vexions. They were just trying to protect themselves. After Ambassador Valtar left, Jake Morrison and his crew sat in stunned silence. The truth about the Frontier Quest incident was far more significant than they had imagined. Their simple helmets had essentially defeated the galaxy's most powerful military force without firing a single shot. I need to understand something, Jake said finally. Valtar explained what happened, but I want to know exactly how it happened. How did our helmets take control of an entire fleet? Amy was already working on her communication equipment. I've been thinking about that too. Our helmets have standard cyber warfare protection systems, but I never realized they could be used offensively. They're not supposed to be used offensively, Danny replied. The defensive protocols are designed to protect us if someone tries to hack our systems. But if the helmets detected a threat, they would use any available method to neutralize that threat, Lisa finished, including turning enemy systems against themselves. Jake stood up and began pacing. We need more details. Valtar gave us the general story, but I want to know the technical specifics. How exactly did 8 humans defeat hundreds of Vexion warriors? I might be able to help with that, Amy said. Now that we have official authorization to know about the incident, I can access higher-level archive files. Zix should be able to help me get into the detailed technical reports. Do it, Jake ordered. I want to understand every step of what happened aboard that Vexian ship. 2 hours later, Amy returned with Zix and a collection of data files that painted a much clearer picture of the incident. They gathered around the holographic display as Amy began presenting her findings. The technical reports are incredible, Amy began. I never realized how sophisticated our helmet systems really are. They're not just protective gear or communication devices. They're essentially portable artificial intelligence units. The hologram showed a detailed schematic of a human helmet. Jake recognized the basic components, but Amy highlighted systems he had never paid attention to before. Each helmet contains 3 separate computer cores, Amy explained. The first handles life, support, and environmental monitoring. The second manages communication and navigation. The third is dedicated to threat assessment and defensive analysis. I use helmets every day, Lisa said. I had no idea they were that complex. Most humans don't, Zix added. Your species has a remarkable ability to integrate advanced technology. So seamlessly that you forget how advanced it really is? Amy continued her presentation. The Threat Assessment Core is the one that caused the incident. It runs continuous analysis of everything the wearer observes, looking for potential dangers. What kind of dangers? Danny asked. Everything, Amy replied. Structural weaknesses that could cause collapse, electrical hazards that could cause fires, chemical contamination that could cause poisoning, and security vulnerabilities that could be exploited by hostile forces. The hologram showed sample analyses that Jake recognized from his own helmet displays. He had always assumed they were simple safety warnings, but now he could see they were far more detailed than he had realized. When Captain Ben Parker and his crew entered the Vexion ship, Amy continued, their helmets immediately began standard threat assessment procedures. But the Vexion technology was unlike anything in the human database, so the helmets had to analyze it from scratch. Jake said, exactly. And human analytical methods are apparently much more thorough than other species use, Amy explained. While the Vexions were giving their tour, the helmets were building complete technical profiles of every system they observed. Zix activated another display that showed the progression of the helmet analysis. The human helmets identified the first vulnerabilities within minutes. Power distribution flaws, communication protocol weaknesses, structural stress points. But they didn't do anything with that information initially, Amy added. The helmets were just cataloging potential threats as part of their standard safety procedures. Until the Vexions made their mistake, Danny said. Right, Amy agreed. When War Commander Vexunnel ordered his weapons to target the frontier quest, the helmets interpreted it as an imminent attack. Their defensive protocols activated automatically. The hologram showed what happened next in detail. Jake watched as the human helmets simultaneously transmitted their analysis data and began implementing countermeasures. The first thing the helmets did was establish communication with the frontier quest, Amy explained. They uploaded all of their tactical analysis and requested immediate assistance. But the ship was outnumbered and outgunned, Lisa pointed out. What could it do? The frontier quest didn't need to fight, Zix replied. The helmets had already identified how to disable the Vexian fleet without violence. Amy highlighted specific sections of the technical report. The Vexian ships all used linked communication networks for fleet coordination. The helmets had identified critical vulnerabilities in these networks during the tour, so they attacked the communications? Jake asked. Not attacked, Amy corrected. They sent carefully crafted signals that exploited flaws in the Vexian network protocols. The Vexian ship's own communication systems began malfunctioning. The hologram showed the cascade of failures that spread through the Vexian fleet. What started as minor communication glitches quickly escalated to complete system failures. The helmets also targeted the power distribution networks, Amy continued. They sent signals that caused the Vexion ships to redirect power away from weapons and shields, and into non-essential systems, like life support and lighting, Zix added. The ships became uncomfortable and disorienting for their crews, but no one was hurt. Jake was amazed by the elegance of the strategy. They disabled an entire fleet without harming anyone. The final step was taking control of the navigation systems, Amy said. The helmets caused the Vexian ships to lock their engines in safe mode. They couldn't move or maneuver until the humans released the locks. Danny shook his head in disbelief. All of this happened in 15 minutes. The helmet computers work very fast, Amy replied. And they had already identified all the necessary vulnerabilities during the tour. Once the defensive protocols activated, implementation was just a matter of sending the right signals. What about the Vexians? Lisa asked. What were they doing while this was happening? Zix brought up another file. The Vexian reports are quite revealing. Initially, they thought their ships were experiencing random technical failures. They had no idea they were under attack. Attack seems like the wrong word, Jake said. The humans were defending themselves. True, Zix agreed. But from the Vexian perspective, their entire fleet had been defeated by an enemy they couldn't see or understand. It was psychologically devastating. Amy showed them recordings from the Vexian command center during the incident. Jake could see the confusion and growing panic as system after system failed without explanation. War Commander Vexonal's initial reaction was to blame his own engineers, Amy said. He couldn't believe that the primitive humans could be responsible for such sophisticated sabotage. When did he realize what was happening? Danny asked. When Captain Parker politely offered to help restore his ship's systems, Zix replied. That's when the War Commander understood that the humans had been responsible for everything. The hologram showed the moment when Captain Parker approached the Vexian commander. The human appeared calm and friendly, while the alien looked shocked and humiliated. Captain Parker explained that his crew's equipment had detected a threat and responded automatically, Amy said. He offered to undo the countermeasures and help the Vexians restore their ships to normal operation. Did the Vexians accept his help? Lisa asked. They had no choice, Zix replied. Their entire fleet was helpless. Without human assistance, they would have been stranded in space indefinitely. Jake studied the technical reports more carefully. I'm seeing something interesting here. The helmets didn't just disable the Vexian ships. They also collected detailed intelligence about Vexian technology. That's correct, Amy confirmed. By the time the incident was over, the humans had complete technical specifications for the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. And they shared none of it with other species, Zix added. The humans kept all of that intelligence to themselves. That's standard security protocol, Danny said. We wouldn't share classified information with anyone without proper authorization. Other species found that concerning, Zix explained. The humans had demonstrated the ability to completely defeat advanced alien technology, and now they possessed detailed knowledge of how that technology worked. Jake was beginning to understand the broader implications of the incident. So the galaxy didn't just see humans as analytically dangerous, they saw them as potentially militarily superior, despite being the newest and supposedly least advanced species in the galaxy, Amy added. The psychological impact was enormous, Zix said. Every species began wondering what human helmets might discover about their own technology. What vulnerabilities might humans identify in their ships, their weapons, their defenses? Lisa looked thoughtful. And that's why the helmet ban became so important. It wasn't just about preventing another Vexian-style incident. It was about preventing humans from accidentally analyzing everyone else's. The final day of their stay at Kepler Station arrived with unexpected news. Ambassador Veltar entered their quarters with what appeared to be excitement, his compound eyes flickering rapidly in a pattern Jake had learned meant good news. Captain Morrison, Veltar announced. The Federation Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's full membership application. They would like to meet with you personally to discuss the terms. Jake felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. What kind of terms? That remains to be discussed, Veltar replied. But I can tell you that your questions about the helmet restriction have been noted favorably by several species representatives. Favorably? Amy asked. How so? Your crew's investigation showed genuine curiosity about galactic perspectives, rather than defensiveness about human capabilities, Veltar explained. Many species appreciated that humans wanted to understand their concerns, Jake nodded. When is this meeting? In 2 hours in the main council chamber, Veltar said. All species representatives will be present. It will be your opportunity to address the galaxy's concerns about human integration into Federation society. After Veltar left, Jake gathered his crew around the common area. This is it, he said. This meeting could determine humanity's future relationship with the galaxy. What do you think they want to hear from us? Lisa asked. Honesty, Jake replied. They already know what human technology can do. What they need to understand is what humans intend to do with those capabilities. Danny looked concerned. What if they decide we're too dangerous to be full members? Then we'll have to prove them wrong, Jake said simply. But I think we have a chance. The fact that they're meeting with us suggests they want to find a solution. 2 hours later, Jake found himself standing in the largest room he had ever seen. The council chamber was enormous, with seating for hundreds of beings arranged in a circular pattern. Representatives from all 12 major species were present. Along with observers from dozens of smaller civilizations, Jake felt very small and very human as he walked to the center of the chamber. His crew remained in the designated observation area, but he could feel their support. Ambassador Veltar served as the meeting's coordinator. "Representatives of the Galactic Federation," he announced, "we are here to consider the application of humanity for full membership status." A tall, imposing figure that Jake recognized as a Vexian warrior stood up. "I am War Commander Kexaval, speaking for the Vexian Empire. We have concerns about human membership that must be addressed." Jake was surprised that a Vexian would speak first, given their history with humans, but he waited respectfully to hear what the commander had to say. "3 years ago, my people suffered a great humiliation at the hands of human technology," Kexaval continued. "But we have since come to understand that this humiliation taught us valuable lessons about our own weaknesses." The chamber was completely silent as the Vexian commander continued. "The humans did not attack us out of malice or aggression," Kexaval said. "They defended themselves using capabilities we did not understand. Since then, we have studied human analytical methods and improved our own technology significantly." Jake felt a flicker of hope. This was not what he had expected from a Vexian representative. "The Vexian Empire supports human membership in the Federation," Kexaval announced. "But we propose specific protocols to manage human technological capabilities in ways that benefit all species." Another representative stood up. This one was from the crystalline species that Jake had seen in the market. "The Zephyrian Collective agrees with the Vexian assessment. Human analytical capabilities could be valuable to the entire galaxy if properly channeled." "What kind of protocols are you proposing?" Jake asked. War Commander Kexaval activated a holographic display. "We propose the creation of joint analysis teams. Humans would work with other species to identify technological vulnerabilities and develop improvements." "Rather than banning human capabilities," the Zephyrian representative added, "we would harness them for mutual benefit." A third representative, one that looked like a walking tree, stood up. "The Botanical Confederation supports this approach. We have already seen benefits from studying human analytical methods." Jake was amazed. Instead of being feared or excluded, humans were being asked to share their capabilities with the galaxy. "However," said another voice, "there are still concerns that must be addressed." Jake turned to see a representative from a species he didn't recognize. They looked like floating jellyfish contained within mechanical suits. "I am Speaker Flux, representing the Ethereal Collective," the being said. "While we appreciate human capabilities, we remain concerned about uncontrolled human analysis of sensitive technologies." "What kind of concerns?" Jake asked. "Your helmet. Technology operates automatically," Speaker Flux explained. "Humans cannot control when their equipment analyzes other species' technology. This creates ongoing security risks." Jake nodded. This was a fair point. What would address those concerns? War Commander Kexaval spoke again. "We propose modified helmet protocols for humans operating in Federation space. The analytical capabilities would remain, but they would require conscious activation rather than automatic operation. Like a safety switch," the Zephyrian representative added. "Humans could still use their analytical tools when needed, but other species would know when such analysis was occurring." Jake considered this proposal. It would mean modifying human technology, but it would also allow humans to keep their capabilities while addressing alien concerns. "There's another element to consider," said a new voice. Jake turned to see Zix, the young Krulin engineer who had helped his crew. Apparently, he was serving as a representative for his species. "The Krulin Technical Assembly has been studying human technology integration methods," Zix said. "We believe other species could benefit from adopting similar approaches." "What do you mean?" asked Speaker Flux. "Human success comes not just from advanced technology, but from how seamlessly they integrate that technology with their cognitive processes," Zix explained. Other species could learn from this approach. Ambassador Veltar stepped forward. The proposal before us is comprehensive. Humans would receive full Federation membership with modified protocols for their analytical technology. In exchange, humans would share their technological integration methods with other species. It's not about limiting human capabilities, War Commander Kexival added. It's about expanding those capabilities to benefit everyone. Jake felt a surge of excitement. This was better than he had hoped for. On behalf of humanity, I accept these terms in principle, but I would need to discuss the technical details with Earth's government. Of course, Ambassador Veltar said. We would expect no less. However, we can begin implementing the basic framework immediately. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means you and your crew can remain on Kepler Station as Earth's first permanent diplomatic representatives, Veltar explained. You would work with Federation technical teams to develop the new protocols. Lisa, Danny, and Amy all looked excited at the prospect. Jake felt honored that they had been chosen for such an important role. There's one more thing, War Commander Kexival said. We propose that the helmet restriction be modified rather than eliminated. How so? Jake asked. Humans may wear their helmets on Federation vessels, the Vexian commander explained, but the analytical systems must be in announced activation mode. Other species would know when human analysis is occurring, and humans would be required to share relevant safety and security findings with the host vessel. The Zephyrian representative added, this would benefit everyone's safety. Hick smiled. So instead of banning human helmets, you're asking us to use them more openly and cooperatively. Exactly, Ambassador Veltar confirmed. The original helmet ban was based on fear and misunderstanding. The new protocols are based on cooperation and mutual benefit. As the meeting concluded, Jake realized that humanity had achieved something remarkable. They had gone from being feared newcomers to being valued partners in just a few days. Captain Morrison, War Commander Kexival approached him as the representatives began to leave. I wanted to speak with you personally. Of course, Commander. The incident with the frontier quest was painful for my people, Kexival said. But it also taught us that strength comes not from hiding weaknesses, but from addressing them honestly. I'm glad something positive came from that situation, Jake replied. More than you know, Kexival said. The Vexian fleet is now significantly more secure because we learned from human analysis. Our warriors are stronger because we accepted human help in identifying our vulnerabilities. As Jake returned to his crew, he reflected on the unexpected turn of events. The galaxy's fear of human capabilities had transformed into appreciation for human potential. So what happens now? Amy asked. Now we become the galaxy's first human diplomatic team, Jake replied. And we help develop protocols that will let humans and aliens work together safely. And our helmets? Danny asked. Jake smiled and picked up his helmet from the table where he had left it days ago. We get to wear them again. But now everyone will know what they can do, and everyone will benefit from what they discover. As he put on his helmet for the first time since arriving at the station,